The morning light over Manhattan usually brings with it a predictable rush of energy, a synchronized movement of millions of people heading toward their respective arenas of daily life, but within the media landscape. Some mornings carry a completely different kind of charge. Inside the state-of-the-art broadcast facilities at Hudson Square, the air is typically thick with the quiet panic and intense focus that precedes a major live television event where every second is calculated, every cue is rehearsed, and every guest is expected to anchor a specific block of programming designed to capture the attention of an eager public. On this particular morning, the stakes felt unusually high because the scheduled lineup included a personality whose very name acts as a lightning rod for attention. A figure who has spent the better part of a decade commanding headlines through a unique mixture of athletic brilliance and chaotic unpredictability. The production crew had spent days preparing for an encounter that promised to pit two masters of verbal combat against each other, creating a narrative tension that is rare even in the fast-paced world of sports entertainment, where hyperbole is the standard currency and genuine shock is difficult to engineer. For the viewers tuning in across the country, the expectations was set for a classic confrontation of minds and words, a moment where the curtain would be pulled back on one of the most anticipated athletic odysseys of modern times. Yet, as the minutes ticked down toward the opening broadcast cues, the atmosphere behind the scenes began to shift from anticipation to profound unease. It is in these quiet, unscripted moments before the cameras roll that the true nature of live television reveals itself. A fragile ecosystem where the absence of a single individual can disrupt a massive corporate apparatus that has been fine-tuned over months of careful planning and coordination. To fully understand how we arrived at this moment of sudden silence and confusion in a high-tech television studio, one must appreciate the sheer scale of the machine that supports these modern gladiators and the digital community that watches their every move with unyielding scrutiny. If you want to stay connected with the deepest breakdowns of these media mysteries and the hidden stories behind the headlines that shape the sporting world, please consider subscribing to the channel right now so you never miss an update on how these unfolding dramas truly resolve behind closed doors. The relationship between a modern sports icon and the broadcasting entities that chronicle their career is a complex dance of mutual reliance, where the athlete provides the raw, unscripted drama of human achievement and the media transforms that raw material into a narrative that can be consumed by millions globally. On this day, however, the dance was abruptly halted, leaving a massive broadcasting empire to scramble for answers while the public was left to wonder what could cause such a dramatic break from professional protocol. The studio itself, a marvel of contemporary engineering filled with glowing monitors, high-definition lenses, and a small army of technicians operating under intense pressure, became an island of uncertainty as the realization settled in that the main attraction was nowhere to be found. The host, a legendary broadcaster known for his uncompromising style, sharp intellect, and absolute refusal to back down from a challenge, sat ready to conduct an interview that had been teased to audiences for days. An exchange that was supposed to explore the mindset of a former champion attempting to defy the passage of time. This was not merely a routine promotional appearance. It was structured as a critical pit stop in a massive, multi-city media blitz designed to reintroduce a global superstar to an audience that had largely grown accustomed to his absence from active competition over the last 5 years. The silence that emanated from the empty guest chair was deafening, creating a ripple effect that traveled instantly from the studio floor to the highest executive suites, sparking frantic phone calls and late-night inquiries that yielded absolutely nothing in the way of concrete answers. Outside the concrete walls of the studio, the city continued its relentless pace, completely unaware that a major cultural collision had just been quietly averted or perhaps merely delayed, leaving those in the know to dissect the implications of a vanishing act that felt both shocking and strangely characteristic of the man involved. When an athlete reaches a certain level of global fame, their actions are no longer judged by the standard metrics of corporate behavior, as they exist in a rarefied atmosphere where whim and instinct often override the carefully constructed schedules of public relations experts and television executives. This latest incident, occurring on a bright morning in New York, serves as a stark reminder of the inherent volatility that comes with covering individuals who have built their entire empires on the foundation of unpredictability and rule-breaking. As the morning broadcast proceeded without its marquee guest, the empty space on the set seemed to take on a life of its own. becoming a symbol of the unresolved questions that continue to swirl around a career that has been as defined by its outsized controversies as it has been by its historic championship victories. The production team had to pivot with the practiced grace of veteran broadcasters, filling the airtime with alternative narratives, yet the ghost of the missing superstar hung heavily over the entire proceedings, ensuring that the real story of the morning was not what was being said on television, but rather what was left completely unsaid behind the scenes. The empty studio seat at the Hudson Square facility belonged to none other than Conor McGregor, the notorious two-time Ultimate Fighting Championship title holder, who was scheduled to appear live on the prominent morning show First Take. Hosted by the formidable Stephen A. Smith, the sporting world was left stunned when the volatile Irishman completely ghosted the production team without providing a single word of explanation, an act that sent shockwaves through the ESPN network and left television executives in a state of absolute disbelief. This high-profile media appearance was meant to serve as a cornerstone of McGregor's extensive promotional campaign for his highly anticipated comeback, a return to active mixed martial arts competition that has been half a decade in the making. For 5 long years, the former featherweight and lightweight champion has remained outside the confines of the UFC octagon, building anticipation to a fever pitch for his scheduled return next month in Las Vegas, where he is locked in to face a familiar rival in Max Holloway. The impending matchup has been described by sports analysts as a monumental rematch 13 long years in the making, tracing back to their original encounter in 2013 when a young, ascending McGregor managed to secure a dominant decision victory over Holloway before either man had achieved their legendary status. To further heighten the stakes of this current media cycle, McGregor had recently used his other successful press stops to announce a highly ambitious roadmap for his future, boldly declaring that his encounter with Holloway would be immediately followed by another massive fight scheduled for July of 2027 against an opponent who has yet to be named. This ambitious grand design made his sudden disappearance from the New York media landscape all the more baffling, as it directly conflicted with the narrative of a completely focused, disciplined martial artist who was ready to reclaim his position at the absolute pinnacle of the combat sports world. When investigative reporters reached out to McGregor's inner circle and management team to ascertain the reason behind this sudden logistical collapse, they were met with an unyielding wall of silence, as his representatives offered absolutely no explanation for why the fighter chose to completely leave Stephen A. Smith and an audience of millions waiting in the dark. The sheer shock of the situation quickly gave way to a sense of profound déjà vu among veteran media observers, who accurately noted that this was by no means the first time the Irish superstar had abruptly walked away from a major television commitment with a Disney-owned network. In the summer of 2023, a remarkably similar incident occurred when McGregor was firmly booked for at least a week to make a highly publicized appearance on ABC's flagship morning program, Good Morning America, only to vanish from the schedule at the absolute 11th hour. During that previous incident, however, the underlying reasons for the chaotic disruption became tragically apparent only a few hours later when breaking news alerts began to populate digital feeds across the globe. In that specific instance, McGregor's inner camp had made a frantic, early-hours phone call to the morning show producers to abruptly state that the fighter would be unable to make his scheduled appearance, offering no initial context for the sudden withdrawal. Shortly thereafter, the prominent media outlet TMZ broke a massive story revealing that an unnamed woman had formally accused McGregor of a brutal sexual assault allegedly occurring during Game 4 of the NBA Finals earlier that same month. While McGregor fiercely denied those serious allegations from the very beginning, and the legal charges were eventually completely dropped by authorities after a thorough investigation. The incident firmly established a pattern of sudden media disappearances occurring right as immense external pressures or hidden controversies began to mount behind the scenes. This historical context naturally forced analysts and fans alike to wonder if history was actively repeating itself in Manhattan, or if this latest disappearance was merely the result of a classic McGregor whim. An exercise of pure superstar privilege from a man who has grown accustomed to operating entirely on his own terms. The tension surrounding his current comeback cannot be overstated, as a professional record consisting of 22 monumental victories and 6 crushing defeats hangs in a delicate balance, with many believing that a loss to Holloway would permanently signal the end of his era as a competitive elite fighter. The corporate machinery at ESPN was left completely exposed by his absence, forcing producers to quickly alter their tightly timed segments and leaving Stephen A. Smith to navigate the live broadcast without the explosive interview segment that had been heavily marketed to sports fans for days. The absolute silence from both the network's official public relations representatives and McGregor's personal media team has only served to accelerate the spread of wild rumors and intense speculation across all major social media platforms. Fans are left to dissect every single piece of available data, questioning whether this sudden retreat from the public eye indicates a catastrophic disruption in his training camp, a sudden medical emergency, or perhaps something far more complex developing behind the closed doors of his inner circle. In the high-stakes world of professional fighting, psychological warfare and public image are almost as critical as the physical preparation itself, and by completely subverting the expectations of a major broadcasting partner, McGregor has once again shifted the entire global conversation away from his athletic training and squarely onto his unpredictable persona. The Hudson Square studio, which should have been the stage for an intense analytical breakdown of a historic 13-year rivalry, instead became the epicenter of a developing mystery that highlights the immense difficulty of managing a modern cultural icon who refuses to be bound by traditional professional expectations. As the hours continue to pass without a formal statement from the fighters' camp, the pressure builds on the upcoming Las Vegas event, converting what was already an immense athletic challenge into a narrative filled with unparalleled drama, uncertainty, and a palpable fear that the highly anticipated July comeback might be completely unraveling before it even has the chance to begin. To truly comprehend why a single missed television interview in a New York studio can reverberate so violently across the entire landscape of global sports, one must examine the extraordinary and turbulent journey of Conor McGregor, a man who transformed himself from a broke apprentice plumber on the streets of Dublin into the most lucrative and culturally significant figure in the history of mixed martial arts. His rise was a modern fairy tale fueled by an almost supernatural self-belief, a devastating left hand, and a masterful command of the microphone that allowed him to completely dismantle his opponents mentally long before they ever stepped inside the cage. He was the architect of an era, a pioneer who broke through the traditional glass ceilings of combat sports promotion to secure unprecedented multi-million-dollar paydays and engineer historic cross-sport spectacles that captured the imagination of the entire planet. Yet, the very same untamed energy that propelled him to the absolute summit of athletic and financial success has frequently threatened to consume his legacy, creating a perpetual cycle of triumphant comebacks and self-inflicted disasters that have left fans and historians permanently divided on his true place in history. This scheduled return to the Ultimate Fighting Championship against Max Holloway is not just another fight, it is an existential crossroads for an athlete who has spent 5 long years on the sidelines, living a life of immense luxury while the sport he helped build continued to evolve at a relentless pace without him. The 13-year narrative arc between McGregor and Holloway represents a profound study in contrasting philosophies and career trajectories, offering a window into how two young fighters can enter an arena as prospects and emerge over a decade later as completely different cultural archetypes. Back in 2013, when a youthful and relatively unknown McGregor defeated Holloway via a hard-fought decision, both men were merely scratching the surface of their potential, unaware that their paths would diverge so dramatically. While McGregor soared to cosmic heights of fame, winning championships in multiple weight classes, conquering the business world with his spirit's empire, and engaging in a legendary boxing match that secured his generational wealth, Holloway took a radically different path, remaining a quiet, stoic, and fiercely dedicated workhorse of the featherweight and lightweight divisions. Holloway built his own legendary status through an unmatched work ethic, enduring classic wars, breaking numerous striking records, and earning the universal respect of his peers through pure athletic excellence and a complete lack of outsized controversy. Now, as they prepare to clash once again, the dynamic has completely flipped, presenting a scenario where the disciplined, constantly active martial artist stands as a terrifying gatekeeper to the modern era for a former champion trying desperately to recapture the magic of his youth. The stakes of this confrontation are raised even higher by McGregor's characteristically bold assertion that this fight would merely be the opening chapter of a grander plan that includes another massive event scheduled all the way out in July of 2027. This long-term declaration was initially viewed by analysts as a sign of renewed focus and dedication, a promise that the fighter was finally ready to abandon the chaotic distractions of his celebrity lifestyle and commit himself fully to the grueling lifestyle of a professional athlete once again. However, by completely abandoning his critical obligations at ESPN and leaving an influential media giant like Stephen A. Smith stranded without answers, McGregor has cast a dark, familiar shadow of doubt over his entire operational infrastructure, forcing the world to question if he possesses the necessary discipline to see this grueling comeback through to its conclusion. The silence that continues to emanate from his camp is not just a public relations failure, it is a symptom of a larger, systemic volatility that has characterized his entire professional circle for years, where communication lines frequently break down and the standard rules of corporate accountability are completely ignored in favor of superstar autonomy. In the unforgiving world of elite combat sports, time is the one opponent that can never be defeated, and 5 years away from the cage is an eternity that can erode the sharpest reflexes, dull the most precise timing, and soften the iron resolve required to survive under the bright lights of Las Vegas. The sporting public is left to wonder if this latest disappearing act is a sign of panic, a manifestation of hidden physical injuries sustained during a brutal training camp, or simply the actions of a wealthy icon who has grown completely bored with the traditional demands of media promotion. What makes this specific incident so compelling is the realization that regardless of his erratic behavior, his missed appointments, or the endless controversies that follow in his wake, the global audience remains utterly incapable of looking away. The value of Conor McGregor has never been solely about his wins and losses inside the octagon. It lies in his unique ability to generate pure, unadulterated human drama, creating a spectacle where the line between reality and theater is permanently blurred. As the clock continues to count down toward the historic July event, the empty studio in Manhattan serves as a powerful reminder that we are witnessing the final chapters of a truly unprecedented sports career. A narrative that is guaranteed to end in either spectacular redemption or